Good morning, everybody. We're starting a new chapter, and it's chapter 10, and it's all about time and length and liquid volume and mass. All right, so it's all kind of mixed together into one chapter. So today's lesson is all about time to the minute. All right, so here we go. Groundhog Day is February 2nd. People say that if a groundhog can see its shadow on that morning, winter will last another 6 weeks. The clock shows the time when the groundhog saw its shadow. What time was it? So it asks us to underline the question. So the question is, what time was it? And then where will you look to find the time? You will look at the picture of the clock. So we just need to write at the picture of the clock. And then it says example. Look at the time on this clock face, and what does the hour hand tell you? So if you remember from any other time you've looked at a clock, the hour hand is the shorter piece and the minute hand is the longer piece. So it wants to know, what does that hour hand tell us? So what does that short hand tell us? Well, it's telling us that it's in between the 7 and the 8. So we just need to write it's in between the 7 and 8. It's in between the 7 and 8. And then it says, what does the minute hand tell you? And we're going to look right here. And if we look here at the minute hand, we know that it's pointing right at the 7, so it's pointing right at 35 minutes. So we're just going to write, it shows 35 minutes. And then on the side over here, it helps us count around the clock. So it goes 0, it counts by 5s because every number you count by 5. So it goes 5, 10, 15. This would be 20. This would be 25, 30, and 35. Okay? Now it says in 1 minute, the minute hand moves from one mark to the next on a clock. It takes 5 minutes for the minute hand to move from one number to the next on a clock. You can count on by 5 to tell time to 5 minutes. So count 0 at the 12, and then it goes 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35, which is what we also did up here, okay? And then, because this hour hand is just a little bit after the 7, but it doesn't quite get to the 8 yet, it is going to be 7:35, and that's how you would write it, 7:35. And it's read 7:35, and it's 35 minutes after 7. Actually, they want us to write the word 7. So after 7. Okay, so the groundhog saw its shadow at 7:35. Okay, so is 7:35 a reasonable answer? We're going to say yes, because let's say because 7:35 can happen in the morning. So let's see that better. Yes, because 7:35 can happen in the morning. All right, time to the minute. Count by 5s and 1s to help you. It says one way is find minutes after the hour. So we're going to look at the clock, the time on this clock face, and what does the hour hand tell you? So our hour hand is a shorter hand, and when we look at it, it's between the 1 and the 2. So we're just going to write between 1 and 2. And what does the minute hand tell you? Well, when we skip count by 5s over here, it goes 0. It starts at 0 at the 12, and it goes 5, 10, 15, 20. And then after this 20, which is at the 4, each little piece is just up by 1. So then it goes 21, 22, 23. So we need to write 23 in there. And then we could write, let's just write that it's at the 23. So at 23. Okay. Now it says count on by 5s and 1s from the 12 on the clock to where the minute hand is pointing, and write the missing counting numbers next to the clock, which we kind of did ahead. All right, and when a clock shows 30 or fewer minutes after the hour, you can read the time as a number of minutes after the hour. So our time is 1, because it's after the 1, but it's before the 2. So it's 1 o'clock, 1, and then the exact minutes is 23. So you write it as 1.23. And then it's read 23 minutes after 1. And you could write it as 1:23. Another way is find minutes before the hour. It's look at the time on this clock face. What does the hour hand tell you? So when we come over here, the shorter hand is over here. It's in between the 2 and the 3. So we're going to say between 2 and 3. And what does the minute hand tell you? Well, if we go ahead and skip down to here, it says now count by 5s and 1s from the 12 on the clock back to where the minute hand is pointing, and write the missing counting numbers next to the clock. So this time they're going to actually have us count backwards by 5. So starting at the 12 and then to the 11, it goes 5, and then 10, and then 15, and then it goes 16, 17. So 17 is going to go there. And when a clock shows 31 or more minutes after the hour, you can read the time as a number of minutes before the next hour. So for this line, let's just fill in that it's actually after 2:30. So it's after 2:30, so we know it's after 2:30. And our time here ends up being 2:43, okay? And if you were to have counted this direction on the clock, it would have gone 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 41, 42, 43. And what they're trying to let us know is that it's 17 minutes. The reason we counted the other way on the clock was to tell us how many minutes it was before the next hour. So it's 17 minutes before 3 o'clock. The exact time, though, is 2:43. All right, our share and show says, how would you use counting and the minute hand to find the time shown on this clock and then write the time? So how would we use counting and the minute hand to find the time shown on the clock? We could count by 5s and 1s. So we're just going to say count by 5s and 1s to find the missing minutes. And then when we do that, we can find the time. So over here, we see that the hour hand is in between the 1 and the 2. So it's going to be 1 something. I'm going to write it here. And then when we count down by 5s, we start at the 12, which is 0, and then it goes 5, 10, 15, 20. And then this is kind of small, but you got to look carefully, and it goes 21, 22, 23, and 24. So our time is 1:24. All right, now this one says to write the time and then write one way you can read the time. Okay, so they want us to write the time first. So our time here, if we look at this, it's really close. It's in between the 2 and the 3. You might want to say 3, but because the minute hand is not quite to the 12, it's still only 2 o'clock. So it's 2 o'clock, and then if we count by 5, starting at the 12, that's 0, we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and then there's only one line, and that makes 56. So it is 2:56 on the clock, and you could say that that is 4 minutes before 3. It's that close to 3 o'clock. It's only 4 minutes before 3. All right, our next clock, we need to write the time first. Our hour hand is in between the 6 and the 7, and it's before the 7, so it's 6 o'clock. And then our minutes tell us if we start here at 0, it goes 5, 10, 15, and then really carefully you count 16 and 17. So it's 6, 17, and then you could say it's 17 minutes after 6. Now this one tells us the time. It's a digital clock, and it simply tells us already that it is 10:45. Okay? And then you could say that that is 15 minutes before 11. It's 15 minutes before 11. All right. Now on your own, what I want you to do is I want you to try just numbers 5, 6, and 7 on your own today. Write the time and tell me another way that you could read that way, whether it's before a certain hour or after a certain hour, okay? And then once you're done, come back and I'll walk you through each of those problems. Okay, so writing the time on our own, this digital clock tells us it is 3:12, and you could have said that it's 12 minutes after 3. For number 6, this time, the correct time is 10:48, and that is 12 minutes before 11. The correct time here is 6:10, and that's 10 minutes after 6. All right, the next set of directions say to represent a problem, write the time another way. So this one says it's 34 minutes after 5. So we know it's going to be 5, and it's 34 minutes. That's a 3 and a 4. 34. So 5:34 is another way to write that. Now this one, for number 9, is 11 minutes before 6. So if it's before 6 o'clock, the hour that comes right before 6 is 5. So we're going to know it's 5 something. But it's 11 minutes before. So you have to think like there's 60 minutes in an hour. So 60 minus 11. And when you do that, you get 49. So our time is 5:49. Then this one is 22 minutes after 11. And whenever it says after, you're going to stick with that same hour. So it's just 11:22. And then when it says before, we got to make sure we go the hour before. So it says 5 minutes before 12. So before 12 is 11. And it's only 5 minutes before. So it's like 60 minus 5, which gives us 55. So 11:55. Okay, problem solving, and use the clocks for numbers 12 and 13. And these are the clocks they want us to use. So for number 12, it says, how many minutes later in the day did the groundhog in Pennsylvania see its shadow than the groundhog in New York? So first we got to figure out what the time is for both New York and for Pennsylvania. So New York is the NY and Pennsylvania is the PA. So our time for New York, the hour hand is between the 7 and the 8, so it's going to be 7. And then our minute hand is right directly on that 5. So we start up here at the 0 and count by 5s. It goes 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So 7:25 is our time for New York. And then for Pennsylvania, our hour hand is still between the 7 and the 8. So it's still going to be 7. But then our minute hand is slightly different. And so we have to start here at 0 and then go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then really carefully look 26, 27, 28. So it's 7:25 for New York and 7:28 for Pennsylvania. And the question just asks, how many minutes later in the day did the groundhog in Pennsylvania see its shadow than the groundhog in New York? So we have to think 7:25 and 7:28, we have to think 28 minus 25, and when we do that, 28 minus 25, 8 minus 5 is 3, and 2 minus 2 is 0, so our answer is 3. So it's just 3 minutes difference. So 3 minutes. And then it says, what if the groundhog in Pennsylvania saw its shadow 5 minutes later? What time would this be? So if they saw it 5 minutes later, you would have to think Pennsylvania is 7:28, so you'd have to think 28 plus 5 more minutes. And so then 8 plus 5 is 13, and 2 plus 1 is 3, so that gives you 33 instead of 28. So then it would be 7:33. So over here we need to write 7:33. What time would it be? It would be 7:33. Now, it says if you look at your watch and the hour hand is between the 8 and the 9, and the minute hand is on the 11, what time is it? So between the 8 and the 9 on a watch, it would be 8 o'clock, because it hasn't quite gotten to the 9 yet. And then if it's on the 11, we're just going to look up here at this clock. If it's on the 11, we'd count from the 12 is 0 and go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So our time would be 8:55. Or you could read it as 5 minutes before 9. Okay, question 15 says, what time is it when the hour hand and the minute hand are both pointing to the same number? Aiden says it is 6:30 and Camilla says it is 12. Who is correct, and explain? So let's pretend we're going to use these clocks up here. So Aiden says 6:30, but if you put the time as 6:30 on a clock, your shorthand is going to be a little bit between the 6 and the 7, and your longhand is going to be on the 6. So they're not pointing directly at the same spot. They're close, but not direct. Now, Camilla says that the 12 o'clock is the one. So, and I'm going to show you that if you were at 12 o'clock exactly, you'd have the shorthand and the longhand pointing at the exact same number. So Camilla is correct. So we need to write Camilla is correct. And then it says explain. But we're just going to say, we're just gonna say that when you are at 12 o'clock, they're both pointing at the same thing. But when you're at 6:30, the hour hand is a little off. Okay, so they both point at the 12 for 12 o'clock. The hour hand points between the 6 and 7 for 6:30. All right. And then number 16 says, verify the reasoning of others. Lucy said the time is 4:46 on her digital watch. Explain where the hands on an analog clock are pointing when it is 4:46. So if you're looking at a clock like this, where are the hands pointing? Well, since it's 4 o'clock, it's going to be between the hour hand. I'm just going to label hour hand. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see. I'm having trouble holding my paper today. Hour hand is going to be between the 4 and 5. So hour hand between the 4 and 5, and then minute hand, I'm just going to label it again. Minute hand for 4:46 is going to be pointing just one space past the 9. So 1 space past the 9. All right. That's what time it will show for, that's for 4:46. All right, and then our last question says, write the time that is shown on the clock and then write the time another way. So over here on our clock, we have the hour hand between the 9 and the 10. So we know that's going to be 9 because we haven't hit 10 yet. So 9, dot, dot. And then when we come back here, our minute hand is between the 4 and the 5, and we count from here, this is 0. It goes 5, 10, 15, 20, 21, 22, and 23. So our time will be 9:23, which we could say as 23 minutes past 9. 23 minutes past 9.